The White House kitchen was a war zone of organized chaos. On the stainless steel countertops lay the freshest, most expensive ingredients, assembled for the state dinner. The air was a mix of the sharp scent of roasted garlic, the rich aroma of fresh thyme and truffle oil, and beneath it all, a palpable tension. Tonight's dinner was the culmination of months of delicate peace talks between the United States and the Republic of Caspia, a small but strategically vital nation. The slightest mistake at the table could lead to a diplomatic crisis. The conductor of this high-pressure orchestra was Julian Moreau, a brilliant, arrogant chef with a Michelin star to his name. He moved through the kitchen like a general, inspecting every detail, unafraid to berate young cooks for the slightest error. "Faster! Those lamb chops are not to be seared. They are to be sculpted like works of art. The sauce consistency needs to be a touch more fluid. This plate is leaving the White House, not a diner," he yelled. Dozens of sous chefs scrambled under his command, each moving with the stress of being part of this historic night. And in the middle of all this noise, chaos, and ego, in the farthest corner of the kitchen, amidst clouds of steam rising from the large industrial dishwasher, was Samir. An old man in his late 60s, his shoulders slightly stooped by the invisible weight of years, every line on his face telling an unread story. He was a figure no one ever bothered to learn the name of. He had been in this kitchen for 20 years. Presidents had changed, chefs had come and gone, but Samir was always there. He was an invisible part of this complex, noisy machine, a ghost whose presence would only be noticed in his absence, quietly washing porcelain plates. For him, this night was no different from any other. Until the Secret Service agents burst in through the swinging doors, their faces like ice, their hands on their earpieces. Their leader was Agent Sterling, a man in his late 30s with sharp features. Sterling's eyes scanned the kitchen the way a bird of prey scans the ground, and they locked directly onto Chef Julian. "Chef Moreau, the kitchen is on lockdown. No one in or out. Everyone stays where you are." Sterling's voice cut through all other sounds in the kitchen like a knife. The expensive copper pan in Julian Moreau's hand fell, clattering on the marble floor like a painful scream. A young cook's knife slipped and dropped onto the counter. Everyone froze. In that moment, a whisper came through Agent Sterling's earpiece, and his face grew even more tense. Without moving his lips, he repeated the word, almost inaudibly, "Poison!" It was then that the old man in the corner, Samir, slowly placed the porcelain plate he was holding onto the counter. He calmly dried his hands on an old cloth, as if it were the most natural movement in the world. He took one step forward out of the crowd of panicked staff, looked directly into the eyes of Agent Sterling, and whispered, "It's all right. The antidote is already on the table." Agent Sterling had seen countless crises in his 20-year career: bomb threats, assassination attempts, political conspiracies. But he had never heard a sentence like that before. The man standing before him was an ordinary dishwasher in his late 60s, with a stained apron and hands wrinkled from water. But in his eyes there was a calmness that didn't belong to a dishwasher, a steel-like glint of a wise man who had seen it all before. This man was not afraid. He was observing. "What are you babbling about, old man?" hissed Chef Julian, his face flushed red with panic and anger. Forgetting Sterling's authority for a moment, he lunged forward. "There can be no poison in my food. This is a conspiracy. It's the work of that Italian rival of mine, I'm sure of it." Agent Sterling silenced the chef with a harsh glare. His attention was entirely on Samir. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice low and sharp. "What antidote? Where?" Samir spoke calmly, as if reciting a recipe. "On the main table in the banquet hall. in the bowl of Ruvian salad with olive oil, sitting to the left of the guest of honor, President Soren's plate. Everyone in the kitchen stared at Samir as if he had lost his mind. Just then, the president's personal physician, Dr. Aris, burst into the kitchen with his medical team. They carried bags and portable testing kits. "Isolate the food," Dr. Aris shouted. "Get samples to the lab immediately. Prepare the broad-spectrum antitoxin serums." The team surrounded the main dish, prepared by Chef Julian, the Eldorian lamb chops with a special sauce. Agent Sterling grew even more tense from the whispers in his earpiece. "Sir, the President has been informed. The summit is in jeopardy. President Soren's pulse is accelerating. We don't know if it's panic or the first symptoms. The doctors are requesting permission to intervene." Sterling turned back to Samir. He walked right up to him, staring him in the eyes. "Listen to me," he said. "We are not playing games here. If you know something, you talk now. Because in a few minutes, we will have to go into that hall and save that man, and one wrong move could start a war. If you are lying, you will spend the rest of your life in a place where you will never see the light of day again. Understood?" Samir showed not the slightest sign of fear at this threat. Years ago, he had stood firm in the face of far more terrifying threats. Without breaking eye contact with Agent Sterling, he said, "Agent, the antidote for that poison is not a serum administered with a needle. Because that poison is not yet even fully a poison, it is a two-part catalyst. One part is a tasteless, odorless mineral powder from the mountains of Eldoria, sprinkled over the lamb in the main dish. By itself, it is completely harmless. It would only cause a slight discomfort in your stomach." As he continued to speak, everyone in the kitchen, especially Chef Julian, held their breath and listened. "The second part," Samir continued, "is a rare orchid enzyme within the special black plum sauce served with the meal. Just like the mineral powder, it is also harmless on its own, but when the two combine with stomach acid, they create a toxin that paralyzes the heart muscles within 15 minutes, in a way that would look like a natural heart attack in an autopsy report." Chef Julian shouted, "That's impossible. The Caspian delegation gave me that recipe. They said it was a top-secret gesture of goodwill." Samir turned his gaze to the chef for a moment. "They deceived you, chef. But there is one other person who knows this recipe. That person is one of the waiters serving the meal. And that person also knows that the only immediate and effective antidote is an oleuropein molecule found in the special Ruvian olive oil in that salad. Their plan was for the president to finish the main course and the sauce before ever touching the salad. That way, the poison would activate, and even though the antidote was on the table, no one would ever know." Agent Sterling's mind was racing, processing these incredible details. This was much more than an assassination plot. This was a chess game, and this old dishwasher in front of him was reading the board far better than they were. Sterling had spent his life unraveling conspiracies. He could recognize a lie by its scent. And this man was not lying. Every detail he described fit together with flawless consistency. "How do you know all of this? All these details?" Sterling asked, the suspicion in his voice slowly giving way to awe and horror. Samir took a deep breath. His eyes seemed to travel far away from this kitchen, back 20 years, to a marble palace washed in blood and fire. "I know," he said, "because this poison has a name. In my country, they called it the King's Kiss. And I was the commander of the Royal Guard, standing right next to my king, King Lysander, when he was murdered with this very poison 20 years ago, powerless to save him." In that moment, it was as if the brightly lit modern kitchen of the White House had traveled back in time. The old stained dishwasher's apron on Samir seemed to transform in the blink of an eye, into a commander's uniform with gold-braided epaulets. The expression on Agent Sterling's face evolved from shock to disbelief, and then to a profound respect. The man standing before him was not a dishwasher. He was living history, a man who had witnessed the fall of a country and the death of a king, who carried secrets in his memory that no one else knew. "The kingdom of Eldoria," Sterling whispered, "fell during the Revolution. Commander Samir Valerius. But all the records said you died in the fire at the royal palace that night." Sterling quickly did a search on a small device in his pocket. On the screen, a 20-year-old photo of Samir appeared, and next to it, in large letters, the words, "Deceased in the line of duty." "Records are written by the victor's agent," Samir said, his voice heavy with the weight of a 20-year exile. "I did not die. I hid. I chose to be forgotten. Because the ones who led the revolution would not have let the commander of the Royal Guard, who knew all the kingdom's secrets, live. Until tonight. That scent? The faint metallic scent I caught while washing the serving platter, it had not faded from my memory even after 20 years. Chef Julian had sunk to his knees. The other kitchen staff watched this incredible scene, holding their breath. Samir was no longer speaking to them, but directly to Agent Sterling. "Now, tell your men. Have them make the guest president eat a bite of that salad immediately, whatever the excuse, and then line up the service staff from the Caspian delegation. I will show you the traitor." Sterling did not hesitate for a second. He barked orders into his earpiece. "Situation Alpha. Serve the guest the Ruvian salad immediately. I repeat, serve the salad now, and isolate the Caspian service team." A few minutes later, new information came through Sterling's earpiece. A look of relief washed over his face. "The guest is stable. His pulse has returned to normal. The doctors have confirmed it was a severe panic attack, but they don't understand what triggered it." Sterling turned to Samir. "You were right." "Always," Samir replied. "Now, if you'll permit me, let's find the traitor." On Agent Sterling's command, the 3 waiters serving the Caspian delegation were brought into the kitchen and lined up against a wall. They were all terrified, professing their innocence. Samir walked slowly in front of them, carefully looking at each of their faces. Even his walk had changed. His shoulders were straight, his steps more determined. He was no longer a dishwasher, he was a commander. He stopped in front of the youngest and calmest-looking waiter in the middle of the line. "This one," Samir said, pointing at the man. "The traitor is this one." Agent Sterling asked, "Are you sure? Do you have proof?" "My proof is something he does not know," Samir said. "The king's kiss poison, when it comes into contact with the olive oil that serves as its antidote, leaves a faint stain on the skin that is invisible to the naked eye but glows under ultraviolet light for 1 hour. Samir pulled a small, keychain-sized UV flashlight from his pocket. It was the last remnant of his past, the only thing he had managed to grab as he fled the palace on the night of the revolution. He switched on the flashlight and pointed it at the waiter's hands. While all the other hands remained dark, that man's fingertips glowed with a pale, ghostly blue light. He had touched the salad bowl to move it away from the guest's plate. That small, seemingly innocent gesture, meant to nullify the antidote, had become his signature. The confession came within seconds. The man was an agent of a radical group seeking to destabilize Caspia, and his mission was to incite a war between the 2 nations. The crisis was over. The traitor was caught. The guest president was saved. The summit was set to continue. As the kitchen slowly returned to normal, Samir turned back towards his corner sink. As if nothing had happened, he put on his apron and prepared to continue washing the dishes. But Agent Sterling blocked his path. "Mr. Valerius," he said, his tone now completely different. "Commander." Samir looked at him. "This country owes you an apology and its gratitude," Sterling said. "For a man like you to be washing dishes here, it's unacceptable. We can offer you a new identity, a life you deserve. A consultant position at the Secret Service, an instructor role at the Academy, whatever you want." Samir gently touched Agent Sterling's shoulder. A tired but peaceful smile appeared on his face. "Agent," he said, 20 years ago I lost a country. I lost a king. I almost lost my honor. But tonight, here, in this kitchen, by saving a life, I have regained it." He walked towards his sink. "I am not a commander anymore. I am Samir, and I like my job, because here," he said as he disappeared into the clouds of steam, "I get to see how everything comes clean in the end. Sometimes that is all we need in the world." Agent Sterling remained where he stood for a while longer. In the corner of the most powerful kitchen in the world, he watched the commander of a king, the man who changed the fate of a nation, quietly wash the dishes. And in that moment he understood that true heroism is not found in ranks, medals, or titles, but in the courage to do what is right in the darkest moment, and in the humility to return to your corner and continue your work in silence afterward.